There are pains that sting for a moment, and then there are pains that reshape the architecture of your soul. The kind that doesn't just hurt, it rearranges you. It takes who you were, breaks the shape of it, and leaves you staring at pieces you swear will never fit together again. But the truth, the quiet, hidden truth, is that pain is not just a wound, it is also a sculptor. And this is the story of Aiden, a man who learned that sometimes the greatest transformations are born from the moments that nearly destroy us. Aiden was someone who believed he had life figured out, not because he was arrogant, but because things had always made sense. He had a stable job, a long-term relationship, a future plan laid out with clean, straight lines. He was the kind of person who followed the rules, who played safe, who chose stability over spontaneity. In his mind, pain was something you avoided, not something you learned from. But life has a way of humbling us, and sometimes it teaches the hardest lessons all at once. For Aiden, everything started to fall apart in a single week, a week that would mark the beginning of the version of himself he never saw coming. It began with a message from his partner, Emily. They had been together for nearly 6 years, long enough to know each other's habits, rhythms, dreams. Aiden thought marriage was the next step. He had been saving for a ring. But the message wasn't what he expected. We need to talk. He sensed the tone immediately, distant, heavy, unfamiliar. When she arrived at his apartment, she didn't hug him. She didn't smile. She didn't even look around the place the way she usually did. She just sat down and said the words that would split his world in half. I'm leaving. Aiden couldn't process it. He thought it was stress, a temporary crack that time would heal. But Emily had already packed her bags. She had rehearsed her decision long before she arrived. Her eyes were firm, not cruel, but certain. It's not you, she said softly. It's me. I just don't see my future here anymore. He wanted to ask 100 questions. He wanted her to stay, to reconsider, to feel what he felt. But she had already stepped out emotionally, long before she stepped out physically. By the time the door closed behind her, Aiden felt a silence he had never known. A silence that was too loud, too sharp, too heavy. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was erasure. The life he imagined disappeared in one evening, and he didn't even have time to grieve before the second blow landed. 2 days later, at work, he was called into a meeting with upper management. The company had been going through restructuring, downsizing, budget cuts. Aiden, we have to let you go. He stared at them, numb. His mind barely had space to process the breakup. Now he was losing his job too. He walked out of the building with a cardboard box filled with years of effort, loyalty, and late nights. Things that suddenly didn't matter anymore. By the end of that week, Aiden wasn't just broken. He was unrecognizable. The stable foundation he had built his identity on crumbled in a matter of days. The week that changed everything became the week he lost everything. For a long time, Aiden couldn't function, not in the way people around him expected. He woke up every morning feeling like he was slipping underwater. He ate mechanically, forcing himself to swallow food that tasted like nothing. He walked through his days in a fog, unable to tell 1 hour from the next. Pain changed the shape of time. It slowed it, distorted it, made every moment feel like a reminder of what he no longer had. At night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment Emily walked away, replaying the moment he was handed the termination letter. He questioned everything. Why me? What did I do wrong? How did my whole life collapse so fast? Will I ever feel normal again? The world around him moved on. People went to work, laughed, made plans. Meanwhile, he felt like he was stuck at the bottom of a well, watching everyone else from far below. One evening, when the loneliness felt unbearable, Aiden walked to the park near his apartment. It was the place he and Emily used to sit after stressful days, talking about nothing and everything. He expected the memories to comfort him. Instead, they hurt. They hit him like a wave he wasn't prepared for. He sat on a bench, head in his hands, feeling completely defeated. And that's when an older man approached, not close enough to intrude, but close enough to offer a presence. "Rough day?" the man asked gently. Aiden didn't answer. He didn't trust his voice. The old man sat down with a soft sigh, looking ahead at the trees swaying in the wind. "You know," he said after a moment, When my wife died, I thought the world was ending. I thought the pain would swallow me whole. Aiden looked up, startled. The man continued quietly. But pain is a strange teacher. It takes things from you, yes, but it also gives things back. Not right away, not easily, but eventually. Aiden swallowed hard. What does it give back? A different version of you, the man said. One you wouldn't have become without the pain. He stood up to leave, placing a gentle hand on Aiden's shoulder. And sometimes, that version is stronger than the one you lost. Aiden watched the man walk away, and those words lingered with him long after he disappeared. A different version of you. One shaped, not ruined by pain. It was the first seed of hope he had felt in weeks. Healing didn't happen quickly. It didn't happen cleanly. And it didn't happen all at once. But slowly, very slowly, Aiden began to rebuild. He started by cleaning his apartment, not because he felt like it, but because he needed control over something. He applied for jobs, not with the desperation of someone trying to fix his life immediately, but with the quiet determination of someone learning to stand again. He went for long walks, letting nature remind him that nothing blooms all year, and yet everything blooms again eventually. He wrote in a journal, spilling out his pain, his confusion, his regrets. And through the writing, he discovered parts of himself he had ignored for years. He realized how much he had shaped his life around stability rather than passion, how much he had silenced his own needs to keep peace, how little he had explored who he was, outside of routines and relationships. Pain had stripped everything away, but maybe that meant he could rebuild without constraints. One afternoon, while cleaning an old drawer, he found sketches he had made years ago. Designs, drawings, ideas he once dreamed of pursuing, but abandoned for practicality. Seeing them lit something inside him. He sat down and began drawing again, not with purpose, but with emotion. The lines weren't perfect. The designs weren't polished, but they were honest. And honesty was progress. The more he created, the lighter he felt. Not healed, but healing. Pain was reshaping him, not into who he was before, but into someone wiser, deeper, more awake. Months passed. Aiden found a new job, different from his old one, but more fulfilling, creatively open, aligned with the version of himself he was becoming. He no longer looked for Emily in crowds. He no longer replayed old memories with the same sharp ache. He no longer felt betrayed by life. He felt reborn, not into a perfect life, not into a healed man, but into someone who knew his own strength, because he had met himself in the darkest moments and survived. Pain didn't destroy him, it carved him. And though he would never wish for the suffering he endured, he could finally see it clearly. It had shaped him into someone he was proud of, someone more compassionate, someone more self-aware, someone more courageous. Pain didn't take from him, it gave him the chance to begin again. And sometimes, the most beautiful transformations are born from the moments that break you open, so life can fill you with something new. Because rebirth doesn't come from winning, it comes from surviving. And Aiden did more than survive. He became